Welcome to the Mink and the Monk. My name is Brad Monkell. My co-host over here is Matt Fink. If you've ever enjoyed one of our videos, just want to say quick, subscribing to our YouTube channel is probably the most helpful thing you could do for us. And if you're feeling extra generous, like, comment, check us out on Instagram and Facebook. But we're so lucky today to be joined by the great comedian Louis Katz, everybody. Please follow him on Instagram, YouTube, everywhere else. Check out his new hour-long special on Epics. And Louis, is there anything you want to plug before we get moving?
Well, I'm gonna have a new special coming out after that as well. That I'd love for people to check out. And yeah, I can tell you when it comes out by either, we should get the podcast going, then they can see if they like me. And then maybe they'll follow me. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay. I just wanted to give you a chance to get it out of the way now, but I have a feeling we'll have some people sticking around. I've interviewed you once before and it was a fun time, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do it again,
Oh, no
Louis.
problem.
And I was lucky enough to see you with Dave Attell recently. I think it was December 28th, 27th, 28th at Caroline's
Oh yeah.
on Broadway. And I gotta say, man, you had the set of the night for me. I
Oh,
was,
thanks.
people talk about being hard to follow. I was laughing so hard by the end of your set. I literally had to take a break and disengage and not listen to the next comedian for like the first part of their set. And I
Wow.
and catch my breath. And I honestly don't remember who it was that came after you.
Wow,
So
man. That's funny because I don't remember that being a particularly good set.
yeah, no, you had me dying. Some new bit about vibrators or something.
No, yeah. Thanks, man.
It was I was so glad I got to catch it. But I was wondering if you had any reflections to make on Caroline's now that it's closed, or I'm wondering how much you got to work there and if that was a close club to your career and your heart.
Well, it didn't it was one of the first clubs that I worked when I moved to New York because one of the advantages I had from when I started in the Bay Area, so I came up and I became a feature and a host at that club for a long time at the San Francisco Punchline. So I got to know all these headliners that would come through town. So when the headliners come through New York, everyone's struggling to get in these showcase clubs like the Cellar or the Stand or whatever. I mean, the Stand didn't exist back then, but the Cellar and stuff like that. But if you want to work Carolines, you kind of got to open for the headliners that are visiting. So my friends would be coming through, and I'd be able to open for them, and that got me in that club sooner. Just doing like feature spots for them. So that meant I was working with. I know early on I worked with. I think maybe Mark Maron there, Al Madrigal, Bobby Lee, all these West Coast comics that I already knew. So that was my memory of it. Now, other than that, they didn't work me that much. And when I went there, I don't know. I always I don't love the setup, and I don't love the crowds that it sometimes brings in, which I feel free to say this now since it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Caroline seems like a sweet lady, but honestly, that guy Lewis, who the booker there, didn't book me very much. So I don't miss that. I'm not super spiteful because mostly it was headliner stuff. But it's a weird room. It's, first of all, whenever I'm there with the Tell, I was there several over, he would do that Christmas to New Year's run. I don't know how long he did it for, but for many years he did it. And I work with him a lot. I got to say, it's honestly, and no offense, it's not you, but it is the worst crowds that we get on the road. Practically there, because they're not his crowds usually. You get a lot of tourists coming in from Times
Okay.
Square, and
Yeah.
they can be a little, they're just like, the good thing about his crowds usually are they're his crowds. They know what they're there to see. They like smart comedy, they like good jokes, they like dirty comedy. And when it's a random tourist who's there for their holiday visit and they couldn't afford Broadway tickets, so they just went to see a comedy show, they're not the best people. Also, something about that stage, man, it's a little too small or a little not high enough. It always feels
Yeah.
like, I always feel like the crowd is like pushing back against me, man. It's like a crazy, it makes me claustrophobic almost. It's like a sliver of a stage just down at the bottom, and you're not that much higher than everybody else. And I always just feel like a little like backed into a corner there.
Mm.
So, but yeah, man, it was a club that I worked a lot of times, and I was there a lot coming up. Um, but I hadn't really worked there in years, so it was nice actually to be back one more time before it closed. But it'd been years since I was really there on a regular basis.
Yeah, I actually, I haven't really gotten to see a lot of shows in the city, and I think Caroline's is the only major club I've gotten to go to. I haven't gotten to go to, the store, or not the store, the cellar, or Gotham, or I don't know. Like, I haven't really gotten to go to the other clubs. So to me, I mean, it's such a breath of fresh air. I mean, I've seen some great shows upstate, but I mean, that's like real deal going to see shows at a club like that. Especially, the only two shows I saw there were Attell
Hmm.
um, for that show, and then literally the same run the year before.
Oh, cool.
My girlfriend and I we went and saw, and we were trying to make it a yearly thing, and then it
Well,
closed.
it's over.
But
Sorry. That's the end of
yeah,
that
no, no,
tradition.
it was no, it was an awesome time. I'm glad we got to do it, but I guess now I just have more to look forward to when I finally make it out to one of the other clubs. I mean, do you have a favorite club?
Well, I mostly work I work the cellar in Gotham, and I like them both a lot. The Gotham, I've been working there for so much longer, but even before I moved to New York, because I did that Comedy Central show live at Gotham, so I shot that there.
Right, right.
And that was actually shooting the same weekend that Stanhope shot his first Showtime special, and I opened for him on that taping as well. So both those so yeah, and I really like them both. I mean, Gotham used to be a headline club like Caroline's, and now it's all showcase, which is better for me. There's a lot of I get more spots, but it's a little bit size wise is in between the two. And I think physically it's a little more manageable than Caroline's, which is a little like not too big, but those people in the corners are pretty far away, in the back.
Yeah.
Um but and the cellar, especially the original room, is so intimate. It's really a very unique experience. So I really like both those rooms.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, those I hear about those places so much. I definitely want to go sometime soon.
Yeah.
Pretty broke right now, but we'll see
Mm.
eventually.
Well, the cellar is
Um,
actually pretty affordable, surprisingly. Like tickets are relatively cheap, so
I'm not even looking forward to those George Washington Bridge fees, or wherever you go and it costs
take a
so
Greyhound
money. I'll
bus.
get there. I'm just trying to hustle right now. I'll get back down there soon enough. But I'm excited to see that you're coming back up to the Funny Bone with Attell in
Hmm.
April. So Albany
Yeah.
listeners,
Yes.
be sure to go to the Funny Bone. I think it's April
27th,
28th that weekend.
28th,
20,
29th.
yeah,
Yeah.
around then. And I'm very excited because that was my first time seeing Attell, and you was seeing you open for Attell there,
Oh
and
yeah.
it was a fantastic show. I think you said that was your first time coming up to Albany when I
Yeah.
talked to you after that, and I hope the second time treats you well because I don't know,
Sure.
not everyone loves Albany. It's definitely a good butt of the joke
Yeah,
for comedians.
it's a trippy place. It was definitely, I'd never been there before. It like felt a little intense because we were staying in a hotel that was like half military that's just been installed there since the beginning of the pandemic, that just been living there for a year, and then half civilians. So it felt like a little bit like a military taking over the town. And then and this is not Albany's fault actually. We really struggled to find late night food there, but what actually that was just a beginning of a trend that would follow us throughout the country. Nothing there, the whole country isn't late night anymore. It's hard to get late night food anywhere, big cities. Everything shuts down earlier because of the pandemic, and it really kind of changed the culture. Attell likes to eat after the shows, so it's hard for us.
Yeah, but yeah,
So
anyone working late, whether it's us musicians or comics, um so there's a lot of different things I want to cover, but you already brought up working with Mark Maron at Caroline's. Matt
mhm.
and I are both big Mark Maron fans.
Cool.
And I've read that some of your early, he's one of the persons that you got to kind of get your early breaks with. I
Hmm.
mean, to what extent would you say that's true, and like how did you end up meeting him and kind of getting things rolling working with him?
Well, again, I opened for him when I was in California. I think at a certain point. I really liked his comedy. I loved his first few albums. And then he was actually living in New York when I moved here. So at one point he tried to get me to take over his apartment after it had bed bugs. I didn't want it because of the bed bugs. And he was living here because he was a host on Air America, which was I don't know if it was like liberal talk radio, and he had his own show on there. It was on for a while. And he had a regular show, and he was going to start filming video sketches to go along with it. And he hired me to help write some sketches for it. And so it was my first job really when I came to New York was writing those sketches. And it's funny, I always tell people a story where and so I did that. It was great to have that little job, but it soon they shut down the whole network. And this is also when Maron's like going through his divorce. And I remember him telling me, he's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna start my own radio show from my garage. It's gonna be great. And I'm like, oh, this is pathetic. Like he's gonna kill himself. Like this sounds horrible. And little did I know it was a huge breakthrough moment for him. But I really thought like, wow, he's hit the bottom. This is it.
Yeah, you were on that podcast, I think in 2019, was it that you did it?
Yeah, right before the pandemic, I did it. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice that he had me on. I appreciated that. And he's always just nice to me, and he's good whenever he sees me, and I'm a fan,
So when this is New York, or this is on the West Coast? This is New York, right?
But I'm talking about New York. So I moved to New York about 7 or 8 years into comedy, and yeah, he was already here. So that's when it was.
So does this coincide with you? So that was your first writing gig, you said?
My first job when I came to New York, I wrote for some of my own stuff. I got a contract to make all these short video shorts, and I wrote all those on my own. So I had that experience.
Was this the porn star and manager sketches, or is that?
Yes.
Something?
Yeah, that's what
Matt was just telling me about those before you joined us.
I'm surprised anyone's seen those. That's a deep cut.
Well, I never checked them out before, but I knew this was coming up, so I just did my due diligence. And I watched a couple of those several times because, well, I listened to If These Balls Could Talk, and
that's my first album.
Yeah, well, I don't know what you call it other than wordplay, was flooring me. I mean, I might have to add some of those to my I was just telling Brad about the Below Hawk and some of these other, like, I mean, I was dying, but like some of the ads I wrote them down because they're all written really poorly because I was laughing, but the Brown Star anal whitening cream and the Nut Wrangler and the my favorite, the after ass to mouth mints. Like, I mean, it was so amazing. I don't know why I hadn't seen those before, but literally, thank you, because I woke up giggling for maybe 90 minutes this morning, and I just couldn't, that was some really unique writing, and I was really impressed by it. Like, it was so much fun to watch. And at first I was like, man, is that Artie Lang? I don't know who the other guy is in there, who was your manager, but I know it wasn't Artie, but for a second I thought it was.
No, his name is I think his name is Joseph. I hope I get his name right. Nunez, I think that's his name. He's a sketch player out of Chicago who had moved to LA. So he was an actor that I hired, and he was very funny on that. And yeah, that's so funny. I'm glad you like those ones because they were so I got this deal to make these videos for this website, and then the website collapsed before I got to put those videos out. And then I got the rights back, and then I released those videos, but like those ones never really got a chance to see the light of day. So a lot of people haven't seen them. So,
well, I'll share them as much as possible.
Thanks, man.
He was great. I also love the little details, because in one thing where you guys are talking about how to not touch privates when you're doing when you and your friend, and I forget you and your friend had a falling out. I just can't remember the other guy's name in that sketch.
Tinkle.
But what's that?
His name is Tinkle.
Tinkle, right. But the Nut Wrangler with the pulley on the shoulder, the attention to detail, I question how late you're up at night thinking of things. Just how much coffee goes into it. It's amazing.
Well, they gave me like a silly budget, like a ridiculous amount of money, because this was early. This is like YouTube. YouTube just come out, so they didn't know what it would be like.
Right.
And like an idiot, I spent their money instead of keeping it. So I really.
But now you have a nut wrangler.
Yeah, yes, I have a nut wrangler. I have various things. I could have done so many more low budget things. I also I stupidly made a bunch of sketches where I was explaining this the other day. It's like that back then it was like you didn't realize that the key to the new media was that when to make real money was to go back to old media, right? So it's kind of like you should do a web series that could be a show and then make it a show, and that's where you really get paid. And I was like, no, I got to make like sketches like that are so dirty they could never be on TV, and that's what I'm going to do. And I did that, but then like what's anyone going to do with that? You know, nothing. So
well, I laughed with it.
Thank
And
you.
Brad, just so you know, the visual, there's a pulley, and they use a glue gun to fasten it to his shoulder.
I was picturing, I was creating my own ball wrangler in my head. I still got to watch it.
But just a pulley on the shoulder and they show a little shot of the glue gun. It's great detail. But yeah, as you're watching, you're like, this is impossible, but I have to watch. You know, like and I was waiting for a phone number to order one. It was fantastic.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
that's really cool. You watched that one specifically.
I watched there was 3. They just fed, and they're short. Like they were 3 or 4 minutes. The other one was what was it? Well, I also love the attention to detail where your manager is holding what looks like a Bavarian eclair in his hand as he's talking you through the scene. You're actually acting, and that's when the ball wrangler comes up. So it's just great. I wish it would have become a show.
Oh, thanks, man. That's really. I appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Thank you. You know, it's just a shame that I have all these sketches that I'm really proud of, and but they're all shot horizontally, and like no one wants to see horizontal stuff anymore. Who would have thought that you know, it would get people wanted to see less, that it was they want to see things shot worse. So
it's true.
Know, that's kind of what bums me out, is that I can't really share them, or that they don't really work on the platforms as much, you know.
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, once Elon Musk gets the screens into our heads, I feel like we'll go back to horizontal, don't you
That'll
think?
be great. I can't wait.
Once it's a chip, I think it'll make a comeback.
I mean, where will you see it? Is there even horizontal? And when it's in your own mind?
It'll be like a Sixth Sense, probably.
You'll just feel it. Your eyes roll back and you'll just feel the sketch.
Yeah, you'll feel it. You'll feel an ad for Coca-Cola.
You know, where those, I mean, you can re-edit them, obviously, if you own them. I mean, because I always shot horizontal too, and now everybody's kind of yelling about that's terrible. But you know, Canva will switch things for you and edit.
But it'll cut things out of the frame.
It will, but you could just fill those in with little like ads for after ass to mouth mints and stuff like that. So you can tie it in with all your swag, so to speak.
That's true. I should try to re-edit it. I will. I haven't given up. So you know.
Well, the stuff's perfect for now on, I would think, on any Instagram or geez, what am I spacing? TikTok. I mean, it's perfect, right? Wouldn't it be? I mean, I think it would be.
Well, yeah, and it's so short too, you know.
I think that you're talking viral. I mean, you had me at Brown Star anal whitening cream, so I think you would have the rest of the world with it.
That should be a Valentine's Day card. You had me at Brown Star anal whitening cream.
Let's make this.
Now, so are you still doing any like sketch writing lately, or is there for yourself or for any projects?
No, it's been a while since I've done that. You know, I've worked on several pilots for TV shows that didn't really go anywhere. But actually, lately, what I'm gonna try, what I keep planning on doing and haven't got around to, is to be more active on Instagram and TikTok. And I actually, I have a few ideas, and just the couple that I've shot, which is only a couple, but I actually kind of enjoy it because I miss writing sketches, and it's kind of fun to write little dumb sketches for me. Because that's actually what I originally liked, even before stand-up. I loved sketch comedy. I loved Saturday Night Live when I was a kid. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to doing that again. Just to writing like dumb little 1-minute things for social media. It's a different outlet than stand-up. So I kind of enjoy that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you seem like I don't know if I had to guess about you, I would think you're the most passionate about straight stand up. Not that that like excludes you from doing other things, but it is kind of like a different muscle to have to write in that format.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the problem is really that it's kind of like you were saying, the details. Like I picture something and I think, well, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. And it's like the thing about social media is that it has to be it's just about content. It's about quantity, not quality, necessarily. You just have to kind of churn shit out. And I'm very bad at that. I'm a perfectionist. Stand up tends to lend itself to perfectionist because literally you're getting to say the same lines. You say the same
Yeah.
lines how many hundreds of times before you actually record them. You know what I mean? So you're tweaking and you're tweaking and you're turning and you're twisting. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like indecisive perfectionist. Like Attell is like this too. It's like you're just in there and you're working and you're working and you can constantly and the tweak isn't like in a video sketch where you're like we have to film something totally differently. It's just a word. So it's an economical way to keep tweaking a project forever, unlike a film where you have to say, hey, we're done, like stop already.
Yeah.
So so yeah, those are the limitations I'm up against, I guess.
I guess with that whole process of putting something out and having to say you're done with it, do you, having recently put something out on Epics and you're putting your other special out soon, are you going through that whole like a lot of people will say they put something out and then immediately they're thinking of new tags and they're already frustrated that they wish they could have done different things, or are you good about kind of setting that stuff aside? Or
Well, with the jokes, I don't think I've ever recorded, maybe my first album, but most of the albums I'm like so sick of the material that I just want to be done with it. So there's
yeah.
that. But I mean, I'll tell you, I went through like 13 different versions of the edit. I've edited it. I really was like making sure it was right and the way I wanted it to be. So it's a little crazy with that kind of stuff. And there's only so much you can do in the edit.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with, I mean, the Epics one I didn't have control over. So, I wish the crowd was the crowd was a little weird, but I think what's the cool thing about it to me is actually because I don't know, I think the joke still worked and it all came off pretty well. So
And what's the name
pretty
of this special? Because
well, it was a series, so they did a series of specials, and it's called,
Unprotected Sets,
thank you,
is that it?
Unprotected Sets. Yeah, I think it's Unprotected Sets season 3. I'm on there. Chad Daniels is on there. It's a pretty good collection of
I
people.
have Epics. I'll check it out. That's one thing I missed. I mean, I saw the porn star and manager clips, but I didn't miss the Epic special. I don't think I'm your demographic, but yeah, I will go and check that out.
Well, yeah, the Epic special it's a lot of material off my second album, Katzkills, which is hard to see right now because they actually took it down due to a lawsuit involving the label. So kind of the only way to get those jokes would be to watch the Epic special right now because it's the only format that it's available on. And honestly, some of them some of them might be better on the album than they are on the special, to be honest.
Well, it's on YouTube because I looked for it. This
yeah,
Brad was telling me, he's like, you got to watch this, and I went on Spotify. It's there, but you can't play it.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting to me.
Yeah, well, I did have a question about it, Brad. Am I cutting you off, or did
Very good.
like, are you because I was telling Brad, like, I grew up in the Catskills. My father worked as a musician and all those bands. I didn't know how much of that was based on if it was just a play on words, or if you actually knew or worked. I doubt you worked any of those places, but maybe you have.
No, I didn't. It was kind of like, I do know that the history of the Catskills and like Jewish comedians working there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, it was kind of evocative of that. And then like Katzkills, like I kill on stage. So I just kind of wanted to say like, this is kind of, I don't think it's that shticky, but I do think it's like, this is a modern Jewish comedian is kind of what it is, and a reference to that, a tribute to that. But no, I don't have a, I read it a lot about Mel Brooks and I seen Dirty Dancing, and that's about my connection to Catskills, would be those two things.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember if I ever met Mel Brooks up there, but I mean, I have some photos when I was a kid. I hung out with Milton Berle. And,
that's incredible.
Yeah, he was amazing. He actually hung out with me for, I don't know, a few hours, and then I got to watch him run a rehearsal. And as annoyed as a lot of the people were in the band, because it was a 3-hour rehearsal, I was amazed at his perfectionist.
Wow.
Like the snare hit had to be at precisely the right time, and the horn hit over, like, he spent hours going over the most minute details, and then watching the show was like, oh, I get it. Like,
Wow.
like, he was, I mean, I didn't get to see the famous part of Uncle Milty, like because he's known for, Brady's known for his member, he
Oh,
a legendary status, but I was like 13, so we would have probably had some problems.
Yeah,
If I
that
had
would be a
asked.
different kind of memory.
Yeah, totally. But it was great. That Jackie Mason, before he did the Broadway World of Comedy
Wow.
tour, those
That's
guys,
so cool.
that's where they all were. So it was a fascinating era to grow up in. I knew all these comics, and I was curious when I saw the title. I was like, "Oh man, I wonder if he's actually referencing that." So I wanted to ask.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, that's really cool that you. I never got to see any of it myself, but yeah, Mel Brooks. That was where he started as I forget the Yiddish word for it, but he was basically like not even just a performer up there. He was, I guess, they hired people at the resorts up there, these Jewish resorts in the Catskills,
Yeah.
to just be kind of like a clown, like an all the. So they're not even putting on shows. Like he would like just go by the pool and like fall in the pool. You know what I mean? And like people would laugh at him, just goofy bits around people, and that's what he would do. So that's way before your time or my time at all. When he would do that. He's what almost 100, literally. So
Yeah, I
getting.
saw him. He was doing a series of tours where I watched Blazing Saddles, and then he would come out at Radio City
Cool.
Music Hall, and he came out and talked to the audience for like an hour.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, it was amazing. I never met him there, but I try to tell people the way I grew up was like, my father worked in one of these bands, or worked in tons of them, but every night there was a dance set, a cocktail hour, and then an opening act, and then a singer every night, 7 nights. Like, so like the show would start at the cocktail hour, or with the dance set would be like 7, and then 8:30 would be the cocktail party, and then like 9 o'clock a comedian would go on. And I don't know if you knew like Mal Z Lawrence or Lenny Rush, or
No, I never even heard of those guys.
oh man, all the Freddie Roman was
Sure.
and then they made this show into a Broadway show. It was called Katzkills on Broadway.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so like they were huge, and that happened on a Monday, Tuesday, every night. So you don't see it anymore, but I grew up in that environment, so it was very cool.
That's so cool. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but I love the name Catskills. That was, and again, your wordplay is amazing. That was great. I never even thought of that, man. Yeah, pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah, man, those gigs I find so fascinating. Like the idea of like I've never played having to back up comedy for music. I mean, it sounds like such a fun gig. I wish I could have experienced a time where that was more common.
There's some cool footage of I think it's Rodney playing with a band in the background, or Rodney or Don Rickles, but it's really, you can see it on YouTube, and it's really funny. There's one joke that like cracks the band up, and they kind of like they miss their cue. It's pretty neat.
It happened all the time. The great comics, you knew the joke was coming, and you still, like, the great ones really delivered it every time, floored you.
Yeah, I think there was like an old Rodney special where he opens with the band singing too, right?
Maybe, but this is one where he had the band like play a little fanfare like after every joke, like not even a rim shot, like a little like a thing, afterwards. So yeah.
It's like that Henny Youngman scene in when he's in Goodfellas.
Yeah, sure.
That's what it was like.
That's incredible.
Yep.
So this is kind of a music podcast. You're our first comedian guest. We're so lucky to have you. And I do comedy on the side, so I guess I want us to try to continue talking about comedy on here, because it's a very interesting thing to talk about. But since this is a music podcast for the most part, and we're already on some of those topics, why when I last interviewed you, we talked a little bit about Charles Mingus.
Sure.
Came up. Charles Mingus is one of my favorite bass players and composers of all time. So I was curious to know a little bit more. We kind of briefly just mentioned it when we talked about it, but like what's a favorite album of yours of Mingus, and I guess you know what about him makes him stand out to you and is different than other acts of a similar, like, I guess, other things that people would call like jazz or of that time period. What makes him stand out to you?
Well, I mean, yeah, Mingus is one of my all. I mean, first of all, music is just my first love, and jazz is what I listen to. I've always listened to. I got into jazz right when I started doing comedy, so I came with them, and I read a bunch of jazz biographies and autobiographies when I first started doing comedy. It's what I listen to when I'm writing because it sounds like. First of all, I can't listen to anything with words when I'm writing, and second of all, the solos kind of sound like my mind searching for the words. Um, so a lot of that's more of a Coltrane thing, but it always does kind of sound like that. With Mingus, I really love I love the noisiness of it. I love these crescendos. I love when he almost has like two solos going on at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, and they're like the musicians are battling each other, and they just have these they're just big and noisy. What I later found out, what I later found out was like a lot of that like really driving big sound was and he does it I think in a more avant-garde way, but it's a lot of it's inspired by I think Duke Ellington, who has these like very crescendo-y, very like energetic, like almost seems like movie sequence songs. And I actually got into a lot of Duke Ellington over the last year or so, and I realized like, oh, this is where a lot of that Mingus stuff comes from. Probably one of my favorite Mingus albums would be Money Jungle, which isn't technically a Mingus album. That's him and Roach and Duke Ellington, and I think that one's like amazing.
Amazing album.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love that one. I guess I'm trying to think of my favorite Mingus albums because actually, like, I listen to him so much that I don't I don't listen to him as much anymore because I've moved on to other things because I just like not that I burnt myself out, but it was like I mean like Black Saint and the Sinner Lady. I actually listen to, even though it's not him technically, the Epitaph recordings. I don't think he ever got to record that. Epitaph is his big magnum opus that I don't think he got to record when he was alive. So you have a Mingus band playing those songs that he did compose,
Okay.
and so he's not. I don't think he's playing on it, but he wrote it. I love that album a lot. Um, it's always like a little bit later stuff. Honestly, like I love the cumbia. He has a cumbia album and the Tijuana Moods. I think
Mm-hmm.
I feel like all my favorites like are all the big guys. They're like Latin influence albums, which I know I guess was a gimmick at some point in the '60s. I think they're all great. I really love jazz with percussion,
Yeah, me
or
too.
I like any kind of music with percussion in it actually. And so like I love his Tijuana Moods, just like I like Sketches with Spain or Olay by Coltrane. I love all those
Yeah.
ones. Um, but yeah,
That,
that's I think would explain my love of Mingus, and I just love that sound. I like that chaos sound. I love
yeah.
that like that build up where it's all this almost it's cacophonous but melodious at the same time, and it just like it kind of just amps me up. I really like it.
Yeah, man. I mean, speaking of the Latin mix in the middle of a career, this album right over here on my shelf, Wayne Shorter's "Native Dancer," he did with
Cool.
Brazilian singer-songwriter Milton Nascimento.
Oh,
It's
sure.
probably it's like one of my favorite albums of all time. That's a similar phase for Wayne Shorter that I really loved. I have Mingus up here, which I
Yeah.
love, but
That's the other one. Would definitely be in the top five for sure.
above that, Changes One and Changes Two are my two favorite
Yes,
Mingus
those are great too.
albums.
And they have those big build up songs too. Those like they're like it's like a 15-minute song. You're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like it's like and actually speaking of what's really good like that is, and it's of course it's funny they did Money Jungles, like there's two '60s Max Roach albums that are just like that have the same kind of feel, but they're even crazier. Like they have like weird vocals coming in and like do you know those ones? It's like
I don't think so. I don't. I mainly know Max Roach from as a sideman, like stuff he did with Clifford Brown.
yeah,
Uh,
but that's the thing is like that Clifford Brown stuff sounds like so to me. sometimes jazz can sound too old timey to me. It's like I like it, I still dig it, but like some of the older 50s, that's why I kind of move more towards 60s stuff, I think. And he really like bugs out in the 60s, man. It's really weird and really cool, almost like those Mingus compositions. There's what are the albums called? People Get Ready, and there's another one, or not, maybe not People Get Ready. It's called People it's all references to civil rights movement stuff.
Yeah, no,
And
that's isn't Freedom Suite the name of one of
that's
those?
one of them.
Yeah,
That's one of them.
and that's what's her name singing? That's I know what you're talking. I just can't remember her name. Right, it's a female singer.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a trippy like a Star Trek
Oh yeah, yeah.
thing, because it's like oh like over jazz, like it sounds crazy. It's like, what is this even? And it's awesome. I love that stuff. And lately, like I said, I've been into the Duke Ellington. Like, it's funny, I like him in the later, I like his later stuff actually, after what's his composer's name? Billy
Strayhorn.
Strayhorn, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like, it's so basically like his last album with him, which is the Eastern Suite or something.
Far East Suite.
Far East Suite, yeah.
Thing.
And then I like that one a lot. And then there's like a bunch, and then I think Strayhorn dies and it changes it. But I really like those post Strayhorn ones. There's like 3 albums that he made like within 2 years in the 70s that I think are incredible. And I find them like they're very listenable now. They don't sound, I mean, all jazz, I guess, kind of sounds dated in a way, but to me, I'm like, I really love it. I think they sound great. In fact, I'm trying to get the rights to one of the songs off one of those 70s albums for the intro to my new special, but
awesome.
having trouble reaching the Ellington estate.
Oh, wow.
Well, have you read Mingus's autobiography, Beneath the Underdog?
Yes, I have. It's a lot of bullshit. He really.
Oh yes, He largely fabricated. Very interesting story. Very weird in some ways, but but certainly very interesting. I enjoyed reading it, but I'm pretty sure he praises Ellington a lot in there. But in general, I feel like in a lot of interviews you hear him praise Ellington. I think he would have said his favorite composer.
I think it's his guy for sure.
Yeah,
and I think what you hear there is, well, that's why Money Jungle is so good, is because you see these guys are playing with their hero, and I think they're like wanting to show off, and it's like what I was saying was great about a Mingus composition. It's almost, I mean, like, you know, Ellington is holding his own, but like they're like, it's like they're all fighting each other almost musically, but in a beautiful way. I actually, that makes it sound more uglier, but I just feel like they're all like, him and Roach are like trying to do their best because they're playing with Duke Ellington, you know, and it really shows, I guess.
I think I read that Mingus almost left the session in the middle.
Oh yeah,
or something. I can't remember what I read.
Also lived in the Katzkills.
Oh, no way.
Really?
My sister went to high school with his son, Eric. Yeah.
Mingus?
Yeah, Eric Mingus. He's a bass player. Yeah, he's still around. I don't know where he is. I'm sure. Wow. He plays electric bass, but he went to the same high school I did back in the 60s.
Named after Eric Dolphy, I would assume. Maybe?
I never asked.
I follow his daughter actually on Instagram as well, and Sue Mingus, his wife. Sorry, yeah,
you're fine.
Was when you saw the Mingus big band in the town, Sue Mingus would be there, which is pretty cool. She passed away, I think, last year, but it was cool.
Right.
You know, she was around. I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's weird to fanboy out like it like that much, like the wife of the guy. But you know, he writes songs about her. She's very much involved in changes, and all that stuff.
He also did I used to sub in the 5 guitarists play Mingus that Jack Wilkins, when someone they needed a sub, she was part. I think she ran that, or she was part of that in the 90s. I never met her, but I used to play that music when one of the guitar players couldn't make it.
Cool.
So, but I never met her. I just know of her.
Yeah.
That you know, besides the obviously like compositional like innovations and beautiful structure he has, which, you know, definitely parallels, I guess, Duke Ellington's attention to detail and arranging prowess. Yeah, I think Mingus is great and all those things. But what you're saying about the collective improvisation and chaos that he kind of allows the music to reach is part of the thing that I love about him. I mean, one of the first jazz albums I ever got into was Pithecanthropus erectus by
Sure.
Mingus.
Yeah.
And in that song, like built just at the end of the melody, each time they reach the end of the head of the song, they kind of just break into a kind of free improvisation vamp, and the multiple solos start going on. There's the chaos of that, which I assume there's some roots there, and I guess like maybe like a New Orleans sort of
Sure.
collective improv. I guess like I don't think we call it Dixieland anymore or whatever, but like dating back to those roots. And I think that Mingus also brings a lot of um, you know gospel and blues sound
Yeah.
into this like big band and swing writing dynamic of the time that it's like you're saying, like a lot of jazz sounds a little too old, or to me, I guess like it sounds almost a little too clean. Whereas I love how like gritty Mingus is willing to get with it, and how much character he puts into it, an individual tune with the choices he makes.
Totally. I
Which
think
the
there's a
band.
lot of blues in it. And in fact, that was my first. I think I was into bluesier jazz from the beginning. I really liked, like, the first thing I really liked was I like Jimmy Smith a lot, because I thought, it's very bluesy, and I like the way the B3 sounds, the distortion of it basically. I always like things that sound. I like distortion. I like fuzz guitar rock, and that's kind of like the version of that. Well, actually, there's also like a muted horn also sounds like that in in jazz music. But I like that B3 Hammond, the way it sounded like that. And that's always kind of bluesy and stuff like that. And so that was also my attraction to Mingus too, was definitely his integration of like the blues and it just have that feel. For me, for jazz, for me, it's like either has to sound like really old or the opposite. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
can't, it's like
yeah,
there's that in between time. Like it's also just too smooth a certain area. It's something about some of the 50s stuff. It's like too, I don't know. I like it. I like when it starts to sound a little rougher and like kind of noisier a little bit, I
yeah,
guess.
same, yeah.
Yeah.
I love Thelonious Monk, Ornette Coleman. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot of soul and like, I guess, not being afraid to reach for some certain things in their compositions that I really love.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
the older stuff, the one that's kind of straddles it that I like is, of course, like almost every Art Blakey is good. Like
yeah,
when people are like looking for a jazz recommendation, I'm just like, any Art Blakey, whatever, it's just is going to be good. And he really straddles those two sounds. I feel like exactly what I'm saying. Like sometimes it sounds like kind of that older jazz, but it's like always pretty damn good. I guess I like a lot of bands led by drummers. There's also this guy I got into um recently. Maybe he's a West Coast guy. I can't remember his name. Let me see if I can figure it out. But he's a band leader, and it's also he's also a drummer, band leader, and it's really good. Do
Ryan
you think of
Blake,
him?
Fellowship.
No, no, no. It's let me see. Hold
And I was
on.
gonna say, while you're looking for that, the other album that you would probably love if you don't know it is the Art Blakey Horace Silver album. It's called Spotlight on the Drums.
Oh no, I don't know that one.
Absolutely incredible. Like you would. It's definitely not. There's a lot of drum features in it, and there's a lot of. I think there's someone who's chanting on it. It's great. It's great
I
music.
love that stuff. Or I like
Yeah,
whenever they have like an African influence or a Cuban influence.
yeah,
I
that's
really
what
like
this
that
is.
yeah.
stuff.
You'll love it.
But it was Chico Hamilton is what I was thinking of,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
who I also really like. I guess he's a drummer, but it's like he has some really cool guitars, and just like it's just a cool sounding. It's almost like it's when it starts getting into the 60s and 70s. You can tell they're I like the kind of slightly influenced by funk, but not the full fusion stuff actually, which I was
Okay.
surprised. I mean, maybe I guess this is. I was gonna say I don't mean to nerd out on music, but I guess this is what this podcast is about. It
It's
was
about anything.
okay,
We
Yeah,
also
cool.
make fun of Brad, so have at it. You got
we
anything?
Thanks.
do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Thanks for the offer.
yeah, man.
Um,
Any ginger jokes you're working on, bring that up. Air them out.
I don't have anything I'm workshopping right now, but I'll keep that in
Okay.
mind if something comes up.
Part
But no,
two.
it was like I was looking through Twitter, and someone said, "What's your top 5 Miles Davis albums?" They only mentioned, like, everyone was only mentioning the fusion ones. They didn't even mention like the classic Miles Davis, which I guess that's the thing now, is people only like that 70s stuff, which is trippy to me. Honestly, that stuff is like I said I like the noise, and it's like it's too noisy for me. It's like this sounds like a little bit like a mess. I don't know. It's like the I guess it's the distorted
Okay.
guitars. It's just to me it's weird. I was saying I like the noise, but it's like, and
No,
I
some
do
stuff's too
usually.
far gone. It's like there still is an element of taste. I don't love every noisy thing. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't know why that yeah, why that didn't it doesn't resonate with me the same way. But it was like they weren't even mentioning all what's considered like kind of blue or any of those other, they didn't, no one mentioned them. Like, I guess it's not cool to mention those now or whatever, but it kind of tripped me out and showed like it was interesting to see how this fusion is really kind of the thing that people are into now, which is interesting.
I mean, I love kind of blue. I guess like Milestones from Miles be more my taste, or like Relaxing with the Miles Davis Quintet,
Mm-hmm.
or like the Second Great Quintet stuff. But yeah, I have to kind of disagree on like the funky fusion stuff because I'm such a big Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters
No, I
guy.
like Herbie Hancock.
That's like my favorite stuff.
It's not that, it's this what is it, it's the, so I tried to
Like
listen to
Bitches
it like
Brew and stuff like that.
It's the Jack
Oh, Jack,
Johnson
that's John McLaughlin on guitar.
Dark Magus, like
I don't
these.
know
I
that.
just I
Okay.
basically like I wrote down all these ones. I'm like, oh, these are Miles Davis albums I don't even know about. And I like would
Yeah.
try to put them on. I'm like, maybe it's just like I can't write to them, man. It's like too much. Maybe it's too
Hmm.
intense. And just for
Yeah.
my purposes that I'm used to using it for, it doesn't work. But it's like it's just like they're very like they're even more out there than I thought. I thought I liked out there stuff, and I was like, man, this is like maybe too much for me. I don't know.
So who are you? What age group are you referencing that are saying that the '70s? The only reason I ask is because I work with young people, and the as close as they get to the music is it true that he was a drug addict or that he pimped women? I'm like, you might be missing the point. At some,
Do they
there,
really bring that up a lot?
I hear that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like he also in between changed music 5 or 6 times and made I don't know how many dozens of records and it was a
The,
genius. But okay, if you want to talk about like
but
his,
are
his
you finding that they're like bringing up their artists' personal lives a lot more?
Oh, well, in general, yeah, because these are by today's standards cancelable offenses, but I mean, he
Michael
also
Jackson's personal stuff is coming up a lot more these days.
Well, every
true, but
day.
but
This thing
Thriller's
coming up.
such a great album. What are you gonna do? Yeah,
The
it's an odd thing.
well, because it's I just saw that movie Tar. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Oh yes, the conducter. Yeah, it's
Yes.
nominated for an Oscar. Yes.
It's really, I thought it was great. I mean, it's like it's my friend said you have to sit through a 45-minute TED talk about classical music in the beginning, but then it gets really good. And
She's amazing in it.
there's
She's
a whole
incredible.
scene where there's a whole scene where basically this discussion that, hold on a second.
Yep.
Hey baby.
You're
All right.
good.
There's a whole
I
discussion
know what
about,
scene you're talking about with the conductor, the young conductor, and he tells her,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
basically it's about this like world class, most famous conductor in the world. It's a fictional character, and she's teaching a class, and this guy's like not into Bach because I don't know what he did. I guess Bach did something too.
Misogynist or something.
Something.
I don't know if it was Bach. Was it Bach?
Yeah, he doesn't like Bach.
Okay, yeah, and he gave some
Uh,
reason just like that. Yeah,
yeah, so it's like I'm just wondering, like, wow, is that? I guess that's kind of true. It's
it
very
is.
weird that people um want purity from their artists, or want want their artists to be these moral, like, angels or whatever.
Good luck finding something worth listening to. Yeah,
Exactly. I mean, it's like you want to say who cancelable. It's like every rock star from the 60s, it's like
Yep.
and 70s, like they were all fucking teenagers.
Yep.
I'm not saying,
Yeah.
I'm saying like, without saying anything about right or wrong, I'm just saying, like, if you're gonna cancel them, it's like literally everybody, all
Right.
of them.
I thought
Mhm.
what was brilliant was her response to him, which was something along the lines of, "Don't be so quick to be offended."
Yeah,
And
sure.
it's like, it's a really true, like that really hit with me. I was like, because that's what you certainly are dealing with that by today's standards. It's definitely a thing, and it's odd because Bach also did quite a few things other than whatever it was that that young man was canceling him for. So
I'm sure people are assholes a lot of it. I mean, like what, like, I mean, you're telling me it's like, and not to get too much into this discussion, but it's like with Louis, for example, and I'm saying, whatever he definitely did things that were wrong, but I'm saying like, oh, you're telling me this guy who has like says things that you could never think of yourself, that makes you look at life in a total way that you never looked at it before. You're telling me he's a little odd? Yeah, I bet he is a little odd. Like what do you want? Like,
Yeah, right.
granted, odd is like letting him off the hook a little bit. Sometimes his his oddness, inflicted things on other people. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, people are weird, man. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Yeah. Brad's a dick. I'm sorry, man. He's not. He's lovely. I'm sorry.
Fuck you, Matt. But yeah, you don't gotta defend Louis to us. Me and Matt were literally unplanned, both at the same Louis C.K. show at the Egg up here in Albany, right before the pandemic. So.
Literally the week of the club, right? It was like what was it? A Monday or a Tuesday?
Yeah, it was right before everything shut down.
And everything shut down on Thursday, and we were that was a super spreader.
Wow.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. There was like, how many? It was like 1,500 people there.
A lot of people. A drunk dude peed right behind me too while we were listening. We were just
That's a good comedy show when you all peed on.
Yeah.
Was he laughing so hard he peed, or just he was that drunk?
No, we were the back left corner of the theater, and he's just standing confused in the back behind us. So
did he piss his pants, or just
yeah, we just heard like a trickling on the floor behind us.
Jesus. Man.
Yeah, it was a fun one. And then pandemic time, baby.
Yeah.
But so all right. First of all, do you have a time constraint? We can get wrapping it up pretty shortly if you.
Yeah, I should probably get out in the next 10 or so, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. I guess just before we totally leave the Charles Mingus trail we were on, is there someone you would, with Charles Mingus's treatment of music, where he lies outside of, I guess, the jazz norm, is there someone in comedy that you think treats comedy like Charles Mingus treats music? You know what I mean? Bringing those characteristics to their sets.
I can't really. It's hard for me to think of someone who does that. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is Andy Kaufman, but I think Andy Kaufman's even more avant-garde actually in ways than Mingus is, because I think Mingus is, like I keep saying, it's noisy, but it's all very palatable. I find it sounds really great the way it's noisy, whereas Andy Kaufman would, like, what would he do? He would sit there and read The Great Gatsby to people. Like, that's like not palatable or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not really the same thing. I don't know. I can't think of anyone that's like him. And in fact, when I even told, it's funny because now I can think of people that are kind of like Mingus. But when I told the musician, like, because Mingus was my first guy I was into, I'm like, so what else is like this? And he was like, not really anything. Like, it's just kind of him, Yeah, and it is kind of true to some extent, even though I did kind of mention that the Duke Ellington kind of sounds like him, but it's not as noisy. And the Art Blakey kind of is a good similar vibe, but it's not. Again, it's not. I mean, I don't know, man. Mingus is pretty singular. I don't know. In
the 90s, I used to go to Smalls. I don't know if you're in the city. You're in New York.
I've been to Smalls.
All right. So in the 90s, there was a guy there named Omir Avital, this bass player, and they really embraced that whole spirit of that. So I used to go down I think it was Mondays, if I remember correctly, and hear all these great players do that. I don't know if he's still in town. I have no idea if that kind of thing is still happening there on a Monday, but you could hear that kind of energy a lot in that place. Specifically, I used to love going to hear those different bands play there.
Wow, man, that's great. I wish I could see more of it. What's a trip? They say that there's a song on a Radiohead album where they're doing kind of a Mingus thing where they do that. It's on Kid A. It's like I think it's the anthem or something, the something like that. But it's like they have dueling. I think they actually have horns. And they do like a Mingus-y solo on it, which is kind of cool to hear that influence in different things,
Very cool.
But no, I can't think of a comedian that's analogous to
open mics has kind of helped me think more about is how I can approach, I like doing other types of music, with like, I don't know, I play with like pop groups or funk groups or whatever, but I like doing improvisation and jazz and things that are more abstract. And it's like comedy, I guess, has changed the way I view building a set, where it's like, yes, I want to improvise things in the moment and kind of be out there sonically, and but also like when a comedian's building a set, I feel like it's very interesting to see like how the efficiency of where they put everything in the set and every moment counts, and they're constantly engaging with the audience. So it is a thing I hope to be able to kind of reverse engineer into my sets of music. You know,
Well, maybe or maybe not. I don't know. I think sometimes the drawback of stand-up and why it's like either a low art or like is maybe more entertainment than it is art is that you're constantly asking for approval of the audience. And I love that and I hate that at the same time, So I'm thinking the cool thing about music is it's not like that. It's like, this is the song, this is what I'm playing. And afterwards they can applaud or not applaud. They'll probably applaud and whatever. But I'm saying, like, you're not note by note waiting to hear a response from the crowd to see if they like that note.
yeah.
And I like I said, I think on one hand it keeps you honest. On another hand, I feel like a little bit beholden to them, and I don't appreciate it. So
Okay.
If
I
I
mean,
could, if I could give you one more compliment, if you're open for it. I know you got to go, but maybe
sure,
keep
I'll
your
take another compliment.
Okay, great. In your what was the is it this isn't happening, or is this what was the comedy?
This is not happening.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, like, in your description of what you're saying, where comedy lacks, not lacks, but the drawback. But I thought it was amazing, your story. First of all, I don't know
Thank
how
you.
much of that is, if that's all based on 100% reality, but
Yeah, it is.
so, man, I watched you bring some of the heaviest kind of story to a group of people and I was just enjoying the fact, like, you were telling that story and the response almost doesn't matter, but there's half of the crowd is loving it. And there's a couple of people, like, literally with a look on their face, like, holy shit, is this really happening? Like, you were giving them the same experience that you must have been having. But I loved how much humanity and vulnerability you brought to that. That was an incredible story. And I also wrote it down, the Vengeful Louis. What an amazing, like, I don't know if you saw this, Brad, but I don't know if I can give the 6-word description of the Vengeful Louis, or if you even remember it, but can I say it? Am I ruining a bit? I don't want to.
I don't know, because I think it takes a whole it takes a whole setup. It's like a whole thing.
So amazing though. Like that to me, like, great comedians like yourself, and I also think Louis C.K., your performance, it's not just set up punch. It's like it's an experience, much like hearing music live, where that story, you don't know. I had no idea what was going to happen, and your punchlines kind of lighten it, but it can't be light. That was really heavy and incredible what you did, man.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate those kind words. But yeah, I mean, that was like, I mean, speaking of which, because I'm not, so if for people listening, it's a 16-minute story. It's one story, and it's very dark, but I add jokes in the whole way. And it was really, I've never bombed more than when I was warming up for that taping. I bombed so much leading up to it. In fact, I think it only went really well like twice, and that was the time before the taping and the taping. Like it was because it was, they actually have different mics for storytelling. They have different they have different shows and open mics for storytelling. And with those shows, I would go to work it out there, and it was too many jokes for them. They like the funny to come out of the story and not to have jokes in the story, which is what I did differently.
Yeah.
And then it was too sad for stand-up clubs. Like, people just wouldn't want to hear this. They didn't come to stand up to hear that kind of stuff. And it wasn't working anywhere, man. So I was really like, I had to stick to my guns. And also, actually, what I learned I had to do was actually stick more to my guns, because when people tell stories these days, they get into this, I call it like NPR voice. They get into this NPR rhythm and tone, and it's basically signaling to a crowd like, this is serious now. And it kills the jokes.
Totally.
But I'm saying I'm guilty of this. I was doing it. I was like, so I'm telling a story. I have to tell it in the storyteller vibe. And
Nope.
my friends, literally like 2 days before I'm about to tape it, my friends Chris Garcia and Marlon, they see me in San Francisco, and they're like, "Hey, you got to deliver those jokes like you regularly deliver jokes." And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh," and I just like, and I could do that. I was like, "Oh yeah, I know how to deliver things normally." And that's when it clicked in, because it signaled to the crowd that it was okay to laugh, and it made it better. So it was like that was something I had to learn to do, and that was something that was, I mean, you picked up on it. Like I'm saying, I had the problem. I did have a problem with the crowd. I'm hoping that they laugh through even the sad parts of that thing. And when I wouldn't get it, I'd be like, oh, this is really rough. I would
Listen,
come home every night demoralized from
I
being
love
here.
that. I love the discomfort of that. So like, but the crowd was huge for you in that video. But I love that there's a person, if you probably haven't, I don't know how much you go back and watch your own stuff. You probably don't, but maybe. But
I haven't seen it for a while.
there's a dude right behind you who's just like everybody's laughing and he's just, but I love, but like what you're talking about is just deep human experiences. I also appreciated that you must be kind of fearless to even go through that kind of experience. I was telling Brad, I was like, man, I would have tapped out at the beginning of the story just if I were you. Like, and you went hard in the paint. Like you finished, you just embraced all of it.
You mean not in the story, like you mean in with the choices I made in the story, the life choices I
Your
made?
life choices, like, god damn, man. I was like, this is absolutely but I was connected because of that. Like I wanted to hear. So even when you're delivering these jokes, like it was amazing to me because that, like,
Thanks,
it
man.
is heavy, but like I'm laughing and crying because like I'm
Thanks,
like,
man.
this really happened. So it's heavy, but your jokes were unbelievable. Like I just love that how you brought the humor to it, because in hindsight it's hilarious that like that you were able to connect those two. So I appreciate it. I'm glad I didn't
Thank
see
you.
the other ones where you were saying you were bombing, but how you did it was great because it was
Thanks.
just fantastic,
Yeah,
man.
I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I'm honestly really lucky that it didn't. I wish I talk about this story about this really kind of messed up girl that I messed around with for a while, and not to give it all away or whatever, and you can see it on YouTube. But yeah, I was just I was just, I'd say the one thing that's not true in the thing is that I say I'm no longer romantic, but I am a romantic, and I was really in love with this girl, and honestly she was a mess. I'm lucky that it didn't tear my life apart. I really came out of it myself generally unscathed. And really, I tried to help this girl, and I think I might have, in retrospect, made things worse for her. And I regret that. I regret not really really stepping up even more, and really helping her, or backing off and not helping her. But I half helped her, and I don't know, I still worry about it. Anyway, this is
Hmm.
not it doesn't make
You
any sense if you
full
haven't seen
helped
the
our
story.
podcast.
Good. Sorry, I don't know, I just started like I
No,
don't know.
no.
No, but
But
in my experience, like with somebody that's when that kind of thing is I don't know if you can stop that train, much like what happened in Ohio a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you can. I don't think you could have had. I don't think you could have influenced that one way or the other, just in my own experience. But what do I know? But still
yeah,
an amazing. I'm sorry, it's still painful for you. But I laughed at your pain pretty hard, so thank you.
thanks. It's not painful for me. It's guilt over not about choices I made for helping her, is all it is, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, sorry to end on that note.
Well,
no,
if
it
you
was
don't have
amazing.
a subscription to Epics, you should really feel guilty.
I like it.
So yeah, I mean, everyone listen to Louis' albums. If These Balls Could Talk,
Yeah.
Katzkills.
Yeah, check out the This Is Not Happening story on YouTube. Look at the Epic special. But the big thing is I will have a new special coming out as soon as possible. So please either, follow me on social media. It's Louis Katz Comedy. It's LouiskAtz. And actually, even better, this is what I try to promote for people to do, is like, social media platforms, they die and they come back, and who knows how often you're on there. If people would please just join my email list, that would be the better way for me to notify you. And I'll bother you twice a year. When my special comes out, and when I come to your town. So, and it's easy to join the email list. All you have to do is text the word balls to 55444. This is a real thing. This is not a joke. I really want people to text balls. It's BALLS, balls with an S, to 55444. They can join the email list. I can tell them when I'm performing in their town. I can tell them when my special's coming out.
I love it. And yeah, follow Louis on Instagram and YouTube, but make sure you subscribe to the email list. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, give the video a like, comment on it. I don't know, make fun of me. Here's my cat just popping up in the background. What a good episode we had with Louis Katz. Thank you so much, Louis.
Thanks
it's really an honor to talk to you again, and I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you when you come to Albany. Remember, April 27th, 28th, everybody. Albany friends, come check it out.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Louis. Have a good one.
Thanks.